Welcome to the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm BJ Kubarulis of the Connection newspapers. Alongside of me is Jeff Graham of the Connection newspapers. Folks, we're coming to you live to tape from Merrifield, where right down the street, as our esteemed colleague Greg Wyshynski, who is not with us tonight, always likes to point out, the movie favorites. What's on
Underworld
your roster?
2 is coming out, is out now, and first one was a pretty good dark movie. If you like that vampire type of stuff.
As I know you do, Jeff. Actually,
Yeah.
Jeff comes in dressed to the office, very gothic sometimes.
Closet
actually.
vamp.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm in the office, but when I'm out, I'm dressed for success.
And speaking of dress for success, man, look at these new shirts we
know.
got. We're really happy. Actually, we're coming to you live from the 1980s, where denim was still in. And man, I'll tell you, we are living it up. Man, I got my Trans Am out in the lot. Seriously.
I like the long sleeves. It's getting cold out.
It is
We're
definitely
wearing our
getting cold.
golf shirts a little too long.
As you'll notice, folks, Greg Wyshynski is not with us today. We are a man down, and he is on vacation, so he will be back with us shortly next week, and we'll party it up with Greg as we always do. Get back soon. Got a whole lot to discuss this week, Jeff. A whole lot happened in the county. Whole lot's going on in the sports world. Let's just shoot right into it. Chantilly suspensions is what everybody wants to talk about. What happened over there with the Chargers?
Well, it turns out that 10 players were suspended, 8 wrestlers for 2 events, or actually 8 basketball players for 3 events, 2 wrestlers for 2 events. It just sounds like there was an incident off-site involving alcohol, and the AD handed down some suspensions. I guess the suspensions will be up probably at the end of this week for the basketball players at their game this Friday. But yeah, it's kind of disappointing. Chantilly over the last 9 months or so has had some tough times in the news. They had their football coach left because of kind of some distractions off the field and on the field, and their AD, their old AD, was reassigned. So and they had just kind of started to get away from that. They had a pretty good fall season with the football team, went 4-6. Golf team had a lot of success. So everything seemed to be going pretty good. And then here it goes again, back in the news for some stuff that you don't want to see if you're a Charger.
And just to be clear, like we said, there were 8 basketball players, boys varsity basketball players, and 2 varsity wrestlers.
That's right.
So that meant for the Herndon game Friday, when Chantilly played Herndon, they brought up a number of junior varsity basketball players.
They actually brought up 3 kids, 2 from the freshman team and 1 from JV. And they actually all got in, because there was if you take 8 kids out, that's cutting your roster pretty much in half.
And they had a small roster to begin with, if I'm correct.
Right. It was decent size, but they rotated a lot of kids in and out. So, and I think one kid is probably out for the season. So he wasn't playing. So, they got some run out of these young kids. But Herndon really put it to them, and they lost a game to Robinson, who was, I think, either in last place or next to last in the district. Last night they lost by 14. So they're really going to need to get these kids back, and they're going to be hurting. Once district tournament comes around, they're right now they're looking maybe 5th place. So they're looking like they're going to be on the road. So this didn't really happen at a good time for them.
And you've done a bunch of reporting on this issue. And you mentioned it was an out-of-school incident. Did we get specifically what the out-of-school incident was and what was involved?
From the wrestling coach told me it was a party that there was alcohol there, and he said that the wrestlers didn't partake, and I'm assuming I don't know if the basketball players did or not. We don't have any evidence that they did, but it's one of those things that he said it's one of those things where it's kind of at the wrong place at the wrong time. These kids, I don't know if they knew alcohol was going to be served, but those are just places you don't want to be during basketball season or whatever sport you're competing in. And I don't know what else happened, but it was found out. So they have to kind of serve their punishments now. And this type of thing kind of happens from season upon season. If you go to every school, it's something like this has happened, and it's usually a typical 2 or 3 game minor suspension, and then the kids come back to play. So, it's not the first time it's ever happened. Let's make that clear.
And on that note, not to overreact and just point fingers at Chantilly kids. It's quite obvious that we're not too far out of high school. We're not too far removed from that, or maybe I am a little bit more than you are. But
Just a little bit.
But you know, I mean, this thing does go on in high school. There's partying and there's alcohol and that sort of thing, and it's not just a Chantilly thing. It
Right.
just, you know, those kids got caught, and
Yeah.
you know, that's the issue. It seems like with Chantilly a bunch. They
Yeah.
just seem to have the more, you know, publicized problems, and you know, everybody has the same issues. It just
Yeah.
seems like for some reason at Chantilly they always it always gets dragged out.
Yeah, I mean,
somehow.
this stuff happens. I'm assuming everywhere. It's kind of like, you know, if you speed, eventually, you know, you're going to get caught some point somewhere, and you know, this time was their time. So.
And so, Jeff, what's next for them? Obviously, you mentioned they've got Robinson. Is that a winnable game with the kids they have?
They
on
had
the roster?
Robinson on Tuesday, and they have Fairfax coming up, and Fairfax is playing really well right now. I think 14-3 overall. So I think between Robinson and Centerville and Oakton's really struggling right now. But Chantilly's going to have to win a couple of these games down the stretch to really get back into that middle part of the district. I mean, Hernan's looking like they're going to wrap it up. Westfield's obviously playing well, and Fairfax looks like they're going to kind of duke it out for the top two or three spots. So the four spot's really up for grabs, and that's where Chantilly would like to be, but I don't know if they're going to get there.
And we mentioned that, Jeff, you did a bunch of reporting on this issue, and moving on to our next issue, media, and I guess the relationship that the media has with administrations. And this is not just ADs and coaches. It's more. It's media relationships with officials and that sort of deal. And what we found in this situation, a lot of people were very stonewallish. It was a lot of no comment. And when it comes to these things, you expect that sort of thing. In fact, I think that's what they teach these officials being an official member of the County 101,
Right.
per se. But we were debating it in the office of what should happen in this situation. The way that I see it, and we can bat this back and forth, is you're a member of the media, you're doing your duty in calling to ask questions about what happened, and the official source should be the person at the top. And when you get a no comment, don't want to sound like sour grapes here, but that's the person that should be having a comment. Everybody else maybe shouldn't. And so, sometimes you have those same people who don't have the time to talk to you in these situations, have plenty of time to talk to you when they need their basketball tournament, publicized so they can bring in the gate, that sort of thing. I guess, what are your thoughts, on that relationship? Where's the line? When should they talk? When should they clam up?
Well, I mean, I can understand, somebody saying no comment just because, you want this type of thing to kind of blow over. You don't want it to, get, out in the news and have all these, different details. But at least as far as my experience, I like to call, like you said, the guy in charge, because that's where you can get all your information from. You're not going to get conflicting reports. You call up to get the facts. The first person I talked to about this story was the basketball coach. I only found out later that wrestling kids were involved. And it was with talking through the wrestling coach that I found out that alcohol was involved. When I talked to the athletic director, he said no comment. So it's kind of difficult to. I mean, you do have to kind of search your avenues, and you hear different things from different people. Certain people say, this is what happened, but I don't want to comment any further. Some people will, dig a little deeper and tell you a little more. But when it's a scenario of this case where it's something difficult, where there's suspensions involved, or whether it's a coaching hiring or a firing or something goes on at the school, I usually like to go to the AD to kind of get it from the person who's in the know, who's kind of in charge of the coaches and the hirings and handing down suspensions. In this case, it was the AD who handed these down. So no comments are tough to deal with, but understandable in some cases.
And I had a situation before in my previous place of work that, I was given several no comments from official sources, and then went and got the story from, a kid, their family, the actual person who was involved in, the incident, if you will, just not to get too, into it, the details don't matter here. What it was is that afterwards, after I got the story anyway from the stonewalling, what I found was that the official people who were given the opportunity to talk were quite upset that the story made its way out anyway. And it's because, if you're a reporter, you're doing your job. You need to, report the details and report what happened.
Right.
And so what you'll find is that afterwards, after you actually get the story anyway, you'll hear sour grapes from those that were trying to stonewall you. That's just
I dealt with one coach this year. One coaching a coach was leaving this year out in one of my schools. I heard it through the grapevine, and I called up the AD to kind of find out what was going on, and he said it was a personnel matter, and it wasn't no comment. And so I asked, is this position even opening? Did the coach leave? Can I say that? No comment. Are you going to be advertising for the position? No comment. It's a personnel matter.
Yeah.
I had to call the coach, and he, I finally got it. I got it out of him that he in fact was leaving.
Yeah.
So you gotta, it kind of makes it difficult on us, and a lot of times it seems like you may question why they may be holding back or hiding when it's something. I mean, we're not trying to find out the secret formula to Coke. We're trying to find out if a
Right.
football position is now vacant, and
It's
you're
not
going to be looking
suspension
for
gate, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
But sometimes I just want to think that they're just wanting to be careful on what
Yeah.
they say, and they don't want to get into trouble by maybe their
Right.
higher ups.
And
So,
that's certainly understandable. But hey, the relationship is a give and take, and it's something 99% of these guys we work very well with, and there's no animosity there. It's kind of a cat and mouse type of
Yeah, I
case,
mean, it
and,
makes it
it's
fun.
It does make
Yeah.
it fun. So, but hey, moving on, we got some swimming to talk about. We just want to mention a couple things, couple swimmers. We've got the districts coming up. We've got the Concord District Swim is going to be this upcoming Friday and Saturday. In fact, all the district swimming meets are going to be this Friday and Saturday, but the Concord will be starting Friday, swimming at 5:30 at Cub Run.
Mm-hmm.
And also we've got Liberty Friday and Saturday at Wakefield Park. And we've got a couple teams that have done well traditionally, Jeff. I guess looking first at the Concord and some new teams in the Concord
Right.
to look at.
Robinson, defending boys champion, has a very strong team coming back, and I think people would expect them to take this district title. And for Liberty on the girls' side, South Lakes is the defending state champion, and I know Stonebridge had I think won 3 or 4 district titles in the Dulles district before moving on over, and they have a tremendous team this year. I know they knocked off Jefferson, who's been a perennial power in the northern regions. So I think that's a good matchup. The girls for the Liberty, and let's mention that the diving will be going on Thursday. And it's kind of one of those things that in Loudon they don't have diving, so so here we got a lot of quality divers, and they usually go on to perform really well at the state competitions. So those kids are working hard.
And it should be noted that Langley's girls are 7-0, undefeated in the dual meets this year. So they're off to an incredible regular season and should probably continue that success in the Liberty meet. So
Right.
It's going to be interesting to see.
And
who comes
Oakton
out.
is going to be, I guess Oakton's kind of pulling triple duty. They're doing Concord District meet, Northern Region meet, and state meet.
Phil Levine over there is he
likes-
loves that swimming.
He likes calling the swimming, so he's gonna be rocking this year.
They're definitely going to be rocking some swimming, guys. If you get an opportunity, go out. Like we said, Concord is going to be at Cub Run, and Liberty will be at Wakefield Park. Go ahead and check out the swimmers. It's some pretty incredible stuff. Those kids can really,
Yeah.
Butterfly still perplexes me. I still try to do that, and I can't do it. So I have
You get
nothing
about
but
halfway
respect.
across the pool.
Nothing but respect for these swimmers who are probably some of the best athletes we'll see pound for pound in their sports.
A lot of these kids get up at 4 in the morning and are out there swimming before class, and then they do it afterwards. So it's kudos to them.
It'll be good to see if South Lakes can rebound after last year's state title and see if they can get back in there and maybe go back for another one. We'll see. So, hey, girls basketball has been heating up for sure, Jeff. I know you've been out covering some games. I've seen a couple teams. Let's talk, particularly about Oakton first. You can't talk about girls basketball in the northern region without talking about Oakton.
Oakton, 18-0, currently, and looking at their schedule, looking over the Concord district, they've really dominated even in district against some of the better teams in that district. Westfield, I think they held Westfield to under 15 points in their game at halftime in their game last week, and this week they beat Fairfax yesterday, held Fairfax to 13 points.
Jesus.
8 at halftime. So they're playing good defense, and Jasmine Thomas, their leading scorer, Northern Region player of the year last year, scored 30 points. So I don't see them being defeated in this region through the region tournament. They could have an off night, but if I was putting money down, Oakton, I'm thinking they're going to run the table.
30 points, 8 steals, 7 assists, I want to say, for Jasmine Thomas. So she's definitely getting it done. I know Fairfax might not have been the toughest opponent for them. I mean, obviously they blew them out, 59-13, but that's something we've seen from Oakton a lot this year. I mean, they have not just beat teams, they've beaten teams up. There was a couple close games they had on a stretch early in the year when they played, I believe it was TC and McLean back-to-back. And, they had some trouble getting by those teams, and it was early in the season, but boy, since then, I'll tell you, and through that Christmas tournament, they have just romped their way through the district and the region, and nobody's even come close.
Right. I mean, for some team to beat them, maybe a team like Edison with Dorena Campbell, or maybe TC Williams with a good freshman over there, Ruff and Pratt. It's going to take a phenomenal performance, not only out of the star, but also kind of the role players, because I mean that's what Oakton has working right now. Jasmine Thomas and the kids flanking her are just playing lights out. So. It's going to be a tough one.
We had a thriller last night that I, of course, missed. Quick sidebar here. Every time I want to go to a game that I think is going to be a good game and something comes up and I can't go, it's been 3 times, okay? Last night was the Lee girls' win over Lake Braddock, a 1-point win on a turnaround jumper. All right. The other game, which we'll see clips from tonight, was the Marshall-Madison game, which I would have loved to be at, regardless of what I thought it was going to be, just like both of their teams. Right. And that turned out to be, obviously, from what we'll see, a buzzer beater. And the time before that, I didn't go to a game that I thought I'd be able to get out to. Roy Williams, the head coach of the University of North Carolina, shows up to scout one of the players. So.
Yep. Next time you're thinking about, taking that 50-50 and then ditch, you should go.
I'll tell you.
You should go.
It's my luck, But, there was a thriller last night. The Lee girls beat the Braddock girls 58-57,
right.
Like we said, on a turnaround jumper from a girl who played for Braddock as a freshman.
Right. Forgive me if I don't pronounce this correctly. Kashay Hopkins hit a jump shot with 1 second, left in the game. I think it was around the free throw line to win. And like we said, I mean, here's a kid who was at Braddock last year and sinks her former team, to win the game. But there have been a lot of overtime games. I know Chantilly beat Robinson last night in overtime by 1 point. So a lot of these kind of pivotal games that I think we're going to see some good district matchups between maybe like a 4 and 5 team. I know Chantilly and Robinson are kind of battling it out there in the Concord district, but seeing some good teams, but also kind of seeing some blowouts as we saw with the Oakton Fairfax score.
And the Langley McLean girls game actually this Friday, like we said, overtime, thrillers, and all that. The McLean girls actually split the season series with the Rotary Cup on the line with the Langley girls. McLean had lost the first matchup, but did come back this past Friday. Jess Stillman hit a 3 right at the buzzer to send the game into overtime. And so that was a real thriller. And McLean did win that game, and Jess Stillman had 19 points. So big win for McLean. Hasn't had the best season, but getting back on track and getting that rivalry split is always going to make those Highlanders feel good. So Marshall girls, they definitely took care of South Lakes, but not as what we would have thought it would have been in years past. South Lakes has really come on. The girls team there, we mentioned last time, we were all together on the show that the South Lakes girls got their first win in a 28-game losing streak. Let's put that into perspective. That was a 3-season span. They lost 28 straight games. They hadn't won a Liberty game, Jeff, in almost over a year. Their last win in a Liberty game was February 4th, 2005, I believe.
Okay.
2005, where they beat McLean. So that was quite a span for them to keep losing, and definitely, they got that monkey off their back. They've got a new coach in there now, and she's, a former, like we've said plenty of times, she's a former South Lakes player who won a state title there, so she's instilling that winning, attitude there, and they've got 3 wins on the season, and 1 in the district. They beat Thomas Jefferson, so I know it's, we're talking too much about a one-win district team here, but it's good to see the turnaround over there at South Lakes.
Yeah, I mean, and you're seeing some, even lately, some teams that don't have a great record or are playing well. Hayfield girls, I think, got their 4th win on Tuesday, and last Friday We're talking about a first-year program over at South County. Got a
Right.
tremendous performance out of one of their kids. Junior forward Lauren Reinshuttle had a quadruple double. I can't recall many triple doubles, being recorded. But she had, I think it was like 15 points, and then had double-digit rebounds, blocks, and assists.
Right.
And she said, how did you find out? Because obviously you're not really keeping track of that when it gets to that kind of a total. And she said, my dad, who keeps the stats, he came up to me after the game and said, and he had a big smile on his face. And I mean, that's kind of how she found out. And I was kind of questioning whether, all right, your dad keeps the stats, so did he add a couple assists or and another block on there? But a quadruple double is just fantastic. They beat West Potomac in that game. Not the strongest team, but quadruple double is amazing.
And we mentioned the Marshall girls took care of South Lakes, and they're up there in the district standings. And the way it's playing out now, it looks like Madison girls are up on top there and battling it out. I think they're all 13-2, I want to say, and they've really come out of the gate strong. Got a couple players over there that have really carried the team to that big start under Denise Wojcik, or Weinig now, if you want to call her, who recently got married to a Madison grad. So, but we know her as Wojcik, and she's doing her Wojcik thing over there, getting those Madison girls back on top. And
Woodson is playing well over in that district. Not the best overall record, but their district record is really strong. So it looks like Marshall and Madison and Woodson might be duking it out, and Stonebridge is a team that's played pretty well. They knocked off Woodson last week, so that's going to be one of the tighter races, I think. As far as the national district, I know Edison is playing real well down there. Patriot, we have West Springfield playing well, and Concord, Oakton's leading that. So a lot of good teams on the girls' side this year.
A lot of good teams on the girls' side, and boy, they're off to an incredible start. It's good to see that we got a little bit more parity than we've had in years past. Some of the traditionally good teams are, staying there, but you have some other teams that are making it interesting. So we want to move on now to something that kept us chattering amongst our journalists in the office this week. House Bill number 1368, Jeff Graham. I'm going to tell you folks a little bit about House Bill 1368, and then you can just talk amongst yourselves. and this is a hilarious bill. Actually, it was proposed by Northern Virginia's own Robert D. Hull from the Falls Church area. And what the bill says, and forgive us for trying to get political here, but what the bill says is that, in a nutshell, if no person owning or operating an athletic field shall operate or allow that field to be operated between the hours, Jeff Graham, of 6 p.m. at night until 8 a.m. in the morning. So you can't play sports.
Any outdoor sport.
Any outdoor sport within a 65-yard radius of a house, of somebody who has been called an affected homeowner because they're affected by noise. Within 65 yards of an athletic field, you can't play sports there if somebody lives there and hasn't signed some sort of waiver. And let's just throw that out the window, because there's always going to be some old woman there who doesn't want to hear the kids playing, is bitter about life, and isn't going to sign the waiver. So, let's just throw that out the window. We're not going to get all the waivers signed. So basically, you wouldn't be allowed to play sports, from 6 p.m. until 8 a.m. in the morning. So let's talk about this. What would you think would happen? I say, goodbye basketball, hello MS-13. I don't know about you or how you feel about it.
Yeah, when my parents were searching for a home in Indiana, I remember going to one place and thinking, "Hey, Dad, this is a great place," and his answer was, "You know what? It's too close to the highway. We're not buying it." And that's kind of my thing. If you purchase this home, unless a school was put up after this purchase, you knew where you were getting into. If you see a football field, there's going to be games there, every fall. Every spring there's going to be baseball, softball, soccer. So, you knew what you were getting into. So to kind of, and I don't know if there's weird circumstances here where we're dealing with somebody who's elderly and sick or something like that, but it's just something you got to put up with. This is crazy.
Oh, I'll give you the circumstances actually behind it, because I talked to the delegate on the phone who proposed this thing, and what his contention is, his fallback plan for not appearing ridiculous for putting this thing up for to the General Assembly, is that one of his constituents who was very upset, who lived in an area, by a private school, who played all hours of the night, was very upset and wrote his own bill and gave it to the congressman, who therefore put it in for him by request. Now,
so he doesn't even really support it himself.
He's not even taking responsibility for putting this thing in. And I said, sir, you realize the buck stops with you. I mean, this thing has your name on it. I said, do you put everything through that comes across your desk? His answer was no. So you can look in the Connection newspapers this week if you'd like, or go to www.connectionnewspapers.com and see the column that I wrote. And let me give you a little tidbit from the column to kind of put this thing into perspective and what it would mean if passed, which, by the way, Jeff Graham, talking to the delegate, he said he wouldn't even, support this thing. So kind of just a big, waste of time, I guess you would say, for our, elected officials. But according to Clark Gray, who is the Vienna Babe Ruth commissioner, out of a 22-game schedule, they play 10 of those games, and this is per week. They play 10 of those games, Jeff Graham. They play 10 of those games after 6 p.m. every week. So 10 of those games would be taken out of the schedule, and then 4 of those games are played on Sundays. Oh, and by the way, in case you were wondering, Sunday is taken out of the equation too. You can't even play anything on Sunday.
So 14 to 22 games.
It would be 14 games out of a 22-game schedule. And his response was, Clark Gray said, the league would cease to exist. I mean, I don't understand what logic went behind putting this thing through. It just doesn't make sense at all. Jerry Connolly, who's the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors chairman, actually put it into perspective, and he said, if passed, this would take away 10,000 hours of use of community fields, and it would equate to the loss of 286 fields.
And to get some peace and quiet for maybe 2 or 3 upset people.
Right. And we're gonna basically do away with sports as we know it to help
someone can sleep good on a Friday night and maybe a Sunday afternoon.
Incredible. Hey, that's our elected officials at work, Jeff Graham. We've got to pat our government on the back for always looking out for us and taking care of us affected sports fans. But a little bit of fun, poke some fun at our elected officials. Let's get on to boys basketball, Jeff. That's our bread and butter, and that's what we love to talk about. And in the office especially, we have a couple of debates that we'll get into. But, starting with, just like girls basketball, there's that Oakton team. The elephant in the living room in boys basketball is Herndon.
Right.
You can't talk about that. You can't talk about boys basketball without talking about Herndon.
And, Herndon right now, all their defeats have come, against the national, ranked teams that they've played. As far as in district, Westfield's given them a little bit of a run. That was an FSN game of the week a couple weeks back. And Herndon, it was, like I say, it was close. That was 8. It was usually about an 8 to 10 point game for most of the game, and then Herndon really pulled it out. So I don't know if they're going to lose in district. I think Westfield's probably got the best chance to take them out. Fairfax is also playing well. Good, they got some good forwards, and I think in the past couple of years that's where Herndon's been a little weak. So yeah, I mean they're another team that should kind of roll through the district, and I think the region tournament's gonna provide a stiffer test for them. There's some good teams out there, some different teams that have different strengths that Herndon's going to meet up against that could pose some problems for a team that hasn't played the best in the postseason in the past few years. So through about 3 or 4 weeks, then we're going to really start talking about Herndon's chances at winning a title.
And you got a chance to see South Lake's boys this past Friday playing against, I believe, the Stonebridge boys.
Stonebridge, yes.
2 different teams there. Stonebridge coming into their first year in the AAA, and that's been the story with this team all year. I mean, their football team did quite well, but they're finding a bit different luck than the football team.
They're struggling a little bit. I think they're about 5-11, 5-12 right now, and really dealing with an injury. Their second best player is out with mononucleosis.
Mike Ray, I believe.
Mike Ray, post player. Brent McDaniel, who's their top guard, and 3-point specialist, leading them about 17 points a game. Has struggled a little bit against the better teams. A team that has like a top defender, like maybe say Madison. South Lakes did a pretty good job on them. So they're struggling a little bit. Whereas South Lakes, they've played really well against Herndon. I think it was a 4-point game there, and it could have gone either way. Julian Vaughn's playing terrific. In the game that I saw. Guy hit 2 3-pointers and then almost had a third one and missed 2 dunks. So I was asking him after the game, so are you becoming like a 3-point specialist now, and you're forgetting to do stuff on the inside. But he says, he's got range, and if people are going to leave him open, he's going to shoot it. So that's a team I think might be able to take Hernan out. They're quite young. I believe they don't start any seniors, so this is a team that could be even better next year. So South Lakes, one team could take out Hernan, but maybe they don't even get that far. I know there's a lot of other teams. Madison's playing well. They're a team that I know you've covered a lot, and you did a nice feature story this week on one of their top stars.
Yeah, I mean the Liberty is shaping up normally the way the Liberty shapes up, and you always see the cream rise to the top, and what we're seeing right now is a battle between South Lakes, Madison, Woodson's in the mix a little bit, but. Madison has an interesting mix. From the beginning of the year, they've been really touted. Everybody's talked about Madison, but what they've been able to do is keep 5 players in near double-figure scoring. They've got 4 definitely averaging double figures. But Rich Conlon, their point guard, has been able to average 9 points, and he just blew up this past game. I believe he scored about 13 points in their last win. So Madison is an interesting team in where they've got Altman in the post. He's a big, tall kid. He kind of scares people. He gets blocks. Kids try to take it in on him. Not so much anymore. He's kind of stepped into that role where it's his paint. Ogolo, who led the Warhawks last year in scoring, John Ogolo, has taken kind of a little bit of a back seat to Warren Edney, but he's still he's still averaging double figures, and you like to see 2 superstar players be able to play with each other. And Edney is a Division I player, and I got a chance to speak with Warren Edney this week, and he's probably, and we'll talk about this soon, but one of those players who may be in that mix for District Player of the Year, him and Vaughn looking to shape that thing out. And Madison has had the one-up now on South Lakes. So, but what Madison can't do is beat Marshall. And while we're on the Madison being unable to beat Marshall, we'll talk a little bit about Liberty District Player of the Year, and we'll get to some more Liberty stuff. But let's go to the clips, if we can, from this Friday's game, which we like to now refer to as the thriller at Marshall. What an incredible game! Came down to the last shot. Pete, let's throw those clips up there. We got Rich Conlon there feeding it into Altman. That's Altman right there. He's a scary guy. He throws up a floater, but it's not going to fall for him. Right there, the rebound goes to Todd Chrissy, who's a banger for them. Here's Daniel Dixon. Got a chance to speak with Dixon, and that's Colbreth, who actually hit the game winner. Dixon's a good kid. Transferred from WNL 2 years ago, has really come along. And like we said, Ogolo, complimentary player.
Able to get to the basket.
That's Edney right there, not having too much luck in that lane. You don't want to see that out of a Division I player, possibly hitting the deck that hard.
A lefty.
Yeah, he is a lefty, and you know those coaches love that. So Edney had the opportunity to steal the show from South Lake's Julian Vaughn a couple weeks ago when Roy Williams was down there scouting him. He scored 20.
Looks to me like standing room only there at
It
Marshall.
It was a packed house, and boy, did they have a good time. Look at this. That's an incredible shot. Opposite side reverse on the outlet pass to be able to slow it down and get that done. Really an incredible athlete is Ogolo, and him and Edney have really, as a tandem, it's really hard to choose who you're gonna defend. But boy, did Marshall figure it out, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean they're a team that like you said, kind of takes you out of your game a little bit, forces you to kind of play a little bit slow in possession, and really keeps the score down.
Yeah, that's what they did. It was a 38-37 game, and there's Altman. There you go, protecting the inside. Here's Colbreth with a quick floater over Altman, and we're going to see that again for the game winner. Boy, was this ever one they're going to remember. But like you said, standing room only. There's Kublank going crazy on the sides. He just loves it. This actually from Daniel Dixon set up the game winner, which we'll see here on the inbounds pass. He actually steps in, throws it. Here's Colbreth. We're going to see this in slow motion. Does he travel?
Oh.
I don't know, but it's over their post player. Here's the shot. This place goes off like a bomb. Watch out, Colbreth, because you're about to get run over by your entire school. There's
including your AD, who's out there pumping his fists and throwing some right hooks out there, looks like.
You love to see that out of an administrator who just loves sports. Bill Kern loving it up over there. Boy, they put on a heck of a show. And they were just glad to have FSN out and covering their games. It's been a long road for that school over there. We've talked about it before, and they're really coming along. Their basketball program though has been pretty even, pretty middle of the pack, and like we said, Madison just can't beat them.
Kevin Weirin, one of the better coaches, in the region. He's been around, Marshall for a while. Good to see him winning. But I guess the thing was after the game, were people kind of saying, was that a travel? I know a lot of the Madison fans are probably upset with that call.
Yeah, I got a chance to talk to Chris Kublank, Monday after things had settled down, and he said that, hey, he thinks it was a travel.
Of course he does.
I'm just gonna throw it out there, okay? I don't think it's something that.
Let's see this again.
All right, here we go. He's got the dribble's still in his hands. Okay,
One.
dribble's up. Ready? 1,
2, and then it somehow he squares up. I'm thinking that right foot got planted somehow.
Somehow, but you know what? That's Jordan Colbreth, and that kid has done so much for Marshall. He was a spectacular football player. He's on the baseball team that actually, upset Madison last year in the tournament. And I talked to him Monday morning as I talked to Coach Weirin. I also talked to the game winner there, and I said, how are things at school? He said, awesome. And he's a very humble guy. He's a very team guy, and it's hard to get him to talk about himself. But, for him to be able to hit that shot in his, senior year, this was a kid that was concentrating on baseball, wanted to take it to the next level, and things, he saw them going a different way and just immersed himself in other sports. And to see him succeeding on the football field, on the baseball field, and like that on the court and beating what he calls, he says it straight up, they hate Madison.
Mm-hmm.
So that rivalry is now alive, and it's good to see that rivalry, getting some new juice to it.
Right, a tri-sport athlete, when you think of those, you don't normally think of Marshall, but this is a school that, like you said, is, it's kind of taken some of that momentum they had in the fall and, are carrying on to the winter. But, as far as some of the other schools around the region, I know Edison's doing pretty well down there in the National District. They got a kid down there, Stokes, who averaged about 16 points last year and is kind of leading them. Ben Stokes, kind of a sharp-shooting guard. So Edison doing some nice things, kind of battling out with Wakefield, last year's region winner.
Do we put Stokes in the category now of maybe a district player of the year?
I'm thinking, talking with some people, it sounds like he could be an all-region first teamer, and normally, the district winners get on that team. So he's kind of a kid that not a lot of people know about, but his numbers, you can't overlook that. As far as the Patriots concerned, kind of a little bit of a shakeup. T.C. Williams is playing well. Marcus Lemon, another possible first teamer for all region.
He's been filling up the stat sheets.
I think he had about 35 points against Hayfield in kind of that big matchup last week. And Hayfield's a team that's kind of struggling right now. 10-7 overall. I know Mike Davis is one of their better players. It looks like he's been a little bit inconsistent, so far this season. And they're coming off a loss last night, Tuesday to Annandale. I think it was 54-40. So 10-7 overall, not exactly what you expect out of Hayfield. It's not too late to turn it around, but they're probably gonna. I'm thinking they're gonna have to go through Hayfield. But you got some other good teams out there. Patriot Lake Braddock's been playing pretty well. West Springfield, playing pretty well. So I think that's probably the district where it's kind of a toss-up.
TC is undefeated right now in their district, 9-0, 14-3 overall. Last night we mentioned Lemon. He dropped 25 on South County. Now it's South County, but we talked to Rich Sanders, who was at that game, and he was pretty impressed with South County. And I think given a couple of years, not just the basketball program, but all of those programs, they're going to be a powerhouse.
Right, because they're getting kids from Hayfield, and Hayfield's been the top team the last 4 years overall. They're the team that wins come playoff time. So. These kids are talented, out there at South County, as we saw from the triple-double from Lauren Reinshuttle on the girls' side.
I want to mention a kid from the National District. Washington and Lee's got a kid, Josh McDaniel, who's just torn it up. Earlier this season, he was averaging near 25 points a game. So this kid is the real deal and could actually reign in that National District Player of the Year. I know their record is not where would be in that race, but an individual effort, he's really torn it up. Nice little point guard, can shoot from anywhere on the court, it looks like. So.
I think it's going to be a real interesting race for some of these Player of the Years. Normally you could pick them, and I think in the Concord, Scotty Reynolds is going to get it, but some of the other districts, it's going to be a toss-up.
Still early, but what's your early pick for Liberty District Player of the Year?
Well, I haven't seen the Madison kid. I've seen the South Lakes kid. It may be by who kind of finishes in first place. And I know Vaughn's getting a lot of attention because of who was recruiting him.
Right.
But as far as the head-to-head matchup, Edney kind of outshone, you might say.
Right.
Vaughn. So when those two play again, maybe that's going to be the kind of the lasting impression that people get as far as who kind of takes that title.
It's going to be kind of a grudge match too, you'd think, because you get a big D1 coach to come look at you, and someone steals your show. And I know I talked to Warren, and him and Julian are friends, and they play in summer leagues and all that stuff, so they know each other, and there's no animosity there. It's just something we like to play up a little bit.
And Vaughn being a junior, maybe that gets some people voting against him,
right.
Because he has a chance to win it next year, where he could maybe win Region Player of the Year. And certainly the sky's the limit for that kid, seems like. And
Edney is getting looks from UNC Greensboro, Old Dominion, those types of colleges where, mid-major type colleges, but he's thinking prep school. Like I said, I talked to him this week, and interesting little tidbit, he is actually a cousin of Chris Paul, former Wake standout.
He's looking like he's going to be Rookie of the Year in the NBA, so good bloodlines, but it's good to kind of see him. And here's a kid who really wasn't getting a whole lot of looks last year for college.
He's getting a lot of Division II looks, and still has some on the table. And he, obviously doesn't want to disrespect those.
Right.
But that's what you do. You hold out to see what you can get, and possibly another route for him would be prep school. So we'll see this Liberty District Player of the Year race, how it shapes up. Obviously, we don't want to leave anybody out. I'm sure there's a couple other kids in there that are quite deserving. But stay very close to the sports page and the connection, and we'll let you know all about them. We're going to be on to trivia now, Jeff Graham. I've got some wild trivia.
I forgot my little trivia question today.
So did I. So I'm going to make one up right now.
Go for it.
All right. What happens when Chuck Norris goes swimming?
Chuck Norris goes swimming. Does it involve a roundhouse kick?
No, not at all.
All right, what is it?
Well, actually, when Chuck Norris goes swimming, Chuck Norris doesn't get wet. The water gets Chuck.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And actually, Jeff,
is that a fact?
It's actually a proven fact, scientifically. And did you know that according to the theory of relativity, Chuck Norris can roundhouse kick you yesterday?
Yesterday. Wow. So how do you know if it's coming then?
It's relativity, man. You know what I'm saying? It's some scientific stuff.
How does that relate to this show?
That's we digress. You got any trivia for me?
I don't.
Thanks, man.
Next week I'll come with 2 questions.
Do your homework, man. What's wrong with you?
Forgot.
Speaking of homework, kids, we want you to tune in every week. We want to thank our sponsors who allow you to tune in every week. We're going to thank them just real quick. We're going to mention them because we love them. CCI Screen Printing. Thank you, CCI, for what you do, making us some beautiful shirts. And look, back in the 80s, baby.
Marshall colors, man.
You know that. You know that's right. But hey, thanks to all our sponsors. We're Ryan Shuttle, Jeff Graham. You've mentioned her a couple times today. We put her on the list. Let's just do it again.
I mean,
how many points did she have?
15 points. I believe it was 12 rebounds.
12 blocks, 11 rebounds.
12 blocks.
10 assists.
And blocks is normally one where you think, how does a kid get 12 blocks? But I guess playing against a West Potomac team who isn't very strong. But you got to be multifaceted. If you're getting 10 assists, you're sharing a whole lot. Rebounding's obviously a good thing. Normally you think of double doubles. You get points and rebounds, but
a quadruple double. Let's just give the stat line one more time so people can soak this in, because this does not happen often. It doesn't happen in NBA. It doesn't happen in boys basketball. 15 points. Let's put that into perspective. All right.
Good game offensively.
12 blocks. That means
that's some stuffing.
That means she blocked 12 shots. I don't know if we realize that.
Normally, a kid doesn't take 12 shots,
and she stopped them. Okay. 11 rebounds, okay, which is respectable.
Maybe she blocked someone and then got the ball.
Rebound.
Who knows?
It matches up, 12 and 11, but 10 assists also. So that's pretty impressive to also be able to dish out when you're having an offensive and defensive game.
That's right. You got to get help from your teammates. Like I said, I can't remember the last time on really any level. I remember David Robinson once got a quadruple double. Back in the day when the Admiral was still lacing them up, but. When you're a triple double, that's news. Jason Kidd's got a lot of them. I think LeBron's had a few. So, quadruple double. That's why it was in the paper this week.
Incredible. Well, we've already talked about Marshall and their incredible victory over Madison. and how the Liberty is now been a little bit reshaped because of that. Yeah, people are still where they are, but Marshall looks like they may be that team that may be able to bite somebody in the district tournament. So that's yet to be seen.
Why do you think Marshall's kind of got their numbers? Is there something that Madison doesn't do well that they kind of exploit?
Jeff Graham, I have no idea.
Chris Kublank, give me a call. What's the problem?
He's probably gonna give me a call tomorrow, actually, because I've been ripping him a little bit.
But I mean, but Madison has beat South Lakes, and South Lakes
Right.
just beat Marshall last night. So it's kind of a little vicious cycle. So that's a team where it's like who's going to be in the final? One of those or two of those three teams are going to have to meet probably in the semifinals. So it's going to be an interesting test.
Speaking of tests, tournament time. I know we're not at March yet, but who do you like for college basketball? Who do you see developing? Who's been surprising to you?
As far as college basketball teams on the boys' side, well, obviously Duke's.
I don't really watch the
Obviously,
side.
even though Duke and Tennessee were playing, and Duke pretty much tore them up on the women's side.
But they've been tearing up the boys' side too.
Yeah, I mean, in Duke obviously they had that great run. Started undefeated, and JJ Redick's been real impressive. Here's a kid that I really didn't think was going to make an impact like he did. I mean, he's a little bit, I wouldn't say one-dimensional because he can do a lot of other things, but not the quickest. Not I think he said he had his first dunk the other day, and he's never going to do it again because it hurt his legs afterwards. So, but I mean, he put up he had a 40-point game the other night, and a guy like him can make it in the NBA just as a shooter. Maybe he doesn't start because of some of his limitations, but I think he's going to have a pretty good NBA career. But Villanova is another team that I hear is, last year they almost knocked off UNC in the tournament, UNC eventual champions, and Villanova didn't graduate one of those players, one of those starters. So that's a team that I think really is a team to look out for. I think they won a national championship back in 84, 85 with Raleigh Massimino. So it's been a while, but they've had some decent teams, but they're a team to look out for.
Don't sleep on UConn. I mean, UConn has really, kind of just flown under the radar, and here they are coming all the way up to the top. So you can't sleep on them. They're always getting it done over there. And then you've got a team, like Illinois with D. Brown over there, who's getting it done, and actually has connections with one of our own here, Scotty Reynolds. Taught him a couple things on the courts of Chicago. But as we digress, they are a team that was in it last year. I mean, they were right there.
Yep.
They were this close, and they've got a lot of those guys back.
Big Ten's is really playing well this year. I know Indiana, my favorite team.
It's good to see them back on
11,
top.
but last night they lose on the road to Iowa. But it seems like in the Big Ten this year, playing at home is really, that's a benefit. I know Michigan State, when Indiana played, and Michigan State was at home, blew them out. But they haven't played really well on the road. Wisconsin is always a deadly team, at home, plays good defense. So 5 teams in the top 25. Good to see them playing well out there in the Big Ten.
Any mid-majors surprising you?
Not mid-major, but I think a major surprise maybe the stuff happening over at Maryland that we've seen this week. Losing their leading scorer because the kid evidently wasn't going to class or.
We're going to bet that back and forth when we get to point counterpoint, and I can't wait to bat that around with you, Jeff Graham, because I got a couple things to say about that.
All right.
But, hey, speaking of mid-majors, GMU basketball. I know, let me just say it right off the bat. I'm a GMU alumni, so of course I'm going to be a little bit, drawn to the Patriots. But I did want to mention they're right in our backyard, people. So if you can get out to a game, get out to a game, because this may be a team you may see in the NCAA tournament come March. We got they're going to go for their 13th win in 16 games when they face William and Mary Thursday night. So that's going to be a pretty. If they can do that, that'll be one of the first times they've been able to do that in years. They just had a 6-game winning streak snapped by Delaware. So yeah, they dropped one, but it looks like they're going to come back strong against William and Mary. Just a couple of key wins we want to mention for the George Mason Patriots. They did beat VCU, who took them out of the possible opportunity for a bid, 2 years ago. And they, like we said, they lost to UNC Wilmington. But their other 2 losses are important only, and you don't usually say this about losses, but it's important to note.
Against.
They took Wake Forest to overtime in November in the Coaches versus Cancer Classic, and they lost 83-78. This is a small mid-major school playing up against like a powerhouse, an ACC powerhouse in Wake Forest. And they also lost to Old Dominion by 1 point. And a lot of people have ODU pegged to win the Colonial Athletic Association and get their ticket punched to go into that tournament in March that everybody wants to be a part of. Some of us call it the dance, Jeff. But it would be good to see the local team, besides Maryland, get into that tournament. Looks like Maryland won't be doing that. It would be good to see a local team get into that tournament. They did well in the NIT before. That's my bid to get George Mason in.
That's what's good about having these small conference tournaments. I know some of the bigger conferences, some teams don't like playing in them because it just creates extra games, and if you're already ranked, you pretty much know you're getting in. But a lot of times you can either jump up a spot or two, or you can lose a spot or two just by playing one bad tournament game. But for these conference tournaments, if you win, you're in, and a lot of times 3 or 4 teams can win. It's not always the number one seed. We've seen some teams get in that were had losing records, but just because they won their conference tournament and were playing well at that time, they get in. So it sounds like Mason has a good a shot as any.
And it's not just Mason who's torn up the CAA, and they're out they're out of conference games. Drexel's done quite well, so it's bringing a lot of notoriety to the conference, which is traditionally a one-bid conference. And so if ODU, who's the front runner right now, somehow loses that title game to someone, say, like Mason, ODU could get that at-large bid. So we could see the CAA be a 2-bid conference this year, and it's something that a lot of people around here have been waiting for. So it would be interesting to see.
Normally you don't see that, but I think when you're talking about some of these smaller schools, a lot of times you see the same smaller schools get into the NCAA tournament. You may not know about them, but they do run. There are good programs out there that aren't the big time schools that you normally think of.
Just a quick note to mention on Mason basketball: they are 39th in the RPI, right behind ODU, who is 37th. And RPI kind of talks about your strength of schedule and where you rank among other teams, and that's kind of how they judge things. Jeff Graham, a little thing we like to call the Super Bowl comes around every year about this time, and it's coming up.
It is coming up. We have to wait 2 weeks. I don't know if I like that or not. Normally, by the time it's a week old, I'm ready to have it played, and you got to wait another week. But
you don't want to get rid of your football fix.
Yeah, and I understand media have to get down there, and there's media day, and there's all kind of these fun things for these guys to do. But
sucks the hype out of it.
It does a little bit, and it kind of, even last week's game sucked the hype out of it a little bit. I mean, just by the results. I mean, Denver playing at home pretty much was out of it after the first half. Jake Plummer kind of reverted to his Arizona Cardinal days: 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions, and Pittsburgh was playing lights out. And on the other side of the ball, Seattle played real well. I don't think I was surprised to see either of them, get this far. A little bit surprised to see Carolina go as quietly as they did, but another kind of a quarterback meltdown for Jake Delhomme. I believe one of his interceptions, he wasn't even looking where he was throwing the ball. He was looking in the backfield out in the flat, and then threw it 20 yards up the field. So,
and Sean Alexander has been one of these guys that people have talked about in kind of a negative tone when it comes to playoffs. And Seattle has been a playoff chump. Let's just say it. So what changed this time?
Well, I think I think coming into this postseason, he was averaging about 3 yards a carry. So maybe you're dealing with kind of a small margin when you're dealing. I mean, they haven't been in a lot of playoff games, so maybe you had one or 2 bad games, and that counts a lot. But here's a guy who led the league in rushing, so you knew they were going to feed it to him. And Carolina was a little bit banged up, but I mean, he's their bread and butter, and they're a team that kind of says, hey, we're going to run left behind our 2 all-pro offensive linemen, and try to stop it. And most of the teams this year haven't been able to. They know what's coming and haven't been able to stop it. And I think that's almost more impressive than trying to trick a team like Pittsburgh says the Colts kind of do, a team that just is pretty much straightforward and tries to bully you. And he did pretty well. A lot of his carries, it seemed like I made this comment to my roommate. It was either like he was getting 10 yards or 0 yards. But I think it's going to be interesting to see if he can do that against Pittsburgh, because I mean their defense is playing real well.
They have been strong, I guess you would say.
Strong to very strong. Troy Polamalu is safety. He's everywhere. I know we got a gal in our office who is a big Troy Polamalu fan and even dressed up like him for Halloween. But
that was interesting, by the way.
Yeah.
To see her Yeah, we're not going to go there. But we're going to hold off on our Super Bowl picks until we get our esteemed colleague back in Greg Wyshynski.
If we get him back.
Hopefully we'll get him back. Hopefully he'll come back from vacation. I don't know.
Hopefully.
But we're going to give you our Super Bowl picks next show, which will be next Wednesday. Please stay tuned and stick with us. But let's bat some things back and forth here. I want to talk to you about Kobe's 81. I didn't find out about Kobe's 81
until I walked in the office.
You walked in the office and said something. I said, what? No way. No way. What happened? How did he get 81? And I ask you this, Jeff Graham, was it harder for Kobe Bryant to get 81, or was it harder for Wilt to get 100?
Well, here's how it happened. He had 20, I think it was about 26 points at halftime, and the Lakers were losing. And obviously, he was feeling it in the second half, and just continued to shoot. I mean, when you're scoring 81, you're taking some shots. I don't care if you're hot or not. You're taking some shots. I think in the fourth quarter he took all but 3 shots. So I mean, he was on, and I think they left him in a little longer than they wanted to. I think Phil Jackson said he was getting ready to pull him out, at a certain time when they had a comfortable lead. But at that time he had like 77 points, so he's like, oh, I can't pull him out now if he's closing in on 80. So I mean, that's tough. Whether it's tougher for Wilt or Kobe, I mean, obviously both of them are tough. What are you thinking?
I think, honestly, I believe it was. I hate Kobe Bryant, so it's so hard for me to say that anything he did was great. And this goes back to when he was dissing Jordan, who's my ultimate god, years ago. But yes, it was harder for Kobe to get his 81, and you just got to give it to him because he did it all from the outside. He rarely took it in. He was shooting threes from downtown LA, straight out of Compton, if you will. And Wilt was just a stilt, and he was in there just, tapping them in. And, also, a quick stat they gave, Kobe did it in front of about 15,000 people. Wilt did it in Hershey, Pennsylvania, in a barn in front of like 4,000 people.
Right.
A little bit different circumstances. Defenses are keying on you, especially if you're Kobe. So I think it was harder for Kobe. It's so hard for me to say that. Want to mention quickly, we're going to go to wrap now, but we want to mention how dumb Chris McCray has to be to blow that opportunity. Real quick.
My question is, are the coaches keeping track of this kid's going to class or not? A lot of programs say, if a kid's skipping, teacher, come and tell me so we can get this fixed. So I mean, I blame him, partially because you got to put it on him. But I question the coaching staff a little bit too.
You hear that, kids? You hear that, kids of Fairfax? Go to class. You will have your scholarship taken away. Go to class. We're going to go to class. We're going to get out of here. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks for watching. We're going to the FSN Game of the Week, Oakton at Robinson, which should just be a complete barn burner. Going to be an incredible game. Get out there, watch the game. Watch it on TV. Saturday at 11 a.m., Sunday at 8 p.m. I watched the last one, Jeff Graham. It was during the NFC Championship. I would have rather watched the Marshall boys beat the Madison boys than the NFC Championship. And that says a lot to our esteemed colleagues here at FSN, putting on a great show for everybody. Go to FSN on the web, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. We got some nice pictures of Jeff Graham on there with his brand new denim shirt. Thank you to CCI Screen Printing for those denim shirts. 703-978-0257. Get your own denim. Quality Care, Ford Service Center, 703-383-6299. Jeff Graham. Well, another week of sports.
Another one down. We've had 2 people the last 2 shows.
2 people, man. Hey, I was down a man last week, so it's good to be back. And hey, Greg, get on back to us. Hope you're having some fun out there watching.
In Florida, watching hockey.
Go Devils! God, I can't believe I just said go Devils.
I love it. Let's get out of here.